Hey everyone, welcome back to BrowncoatNerd. Just when you thought I was done with roller delays, I've got another one for you. At least it's not a set me, right? This is the Century Arms C93 Sporter, which was built off of a parts kit of an HK33, which is the Fire Select, military version, or you have the HK93, which is the civilian semi-auto. But like I said, this one's actually built off of a parts kit, which is kind of neat. So this does have legit surplus parts in it. Now, let's get real quick, just briefly go over some of the history on this. If we're going to talk about the history of the HK93 or 33, you got to rewind a little bit to the G3, which was the first time Germany was starting to use the kind of modern roller delay. They did have some roller delays in World War II. But the G3 is kind of where this came from. And the G3 actually came, let me do this without knocking down the stand, came from the Set Me C. Well, it started out as the Set Me A and then evolved from the B to the C. I do have a video on this. This is actually a Century Arms, once again, C308. And I dive really deep into the history on that. That's about as far back on the history I'm willing to go because I don't want to repeat all that. It's kind of lengthy. Ultimately, it goes back to the STG 45 or even the 44. Anyways, so the G3 was first produced in Germany in 1959 and was actually produced not by HK but Rheinmetall, something like that. They produced it for a very short period of time, and then HK took over production. And there may have been some overlapping production there as well. But anyway, so that was 1959 when they started making the G3, which is essentially a Set Me C. And then interestingly, they did not go immediately to the intermediate cartridge version next. They actually went down to the pistol caliber version, which is the very famous, very iconic MP5. And that went into production in 1966. Which I always assumed they would have, produced the 33 before the MP5, but that is not the case. Both the G3 and the MP5 were extremely successful models. Many militaries and police adopted them. They're still in use today. And of course, this is still in use today with some militaries as well. But then, this guy did not go into production until 1968, which kind of surprised me. Now, the development did begin in 1963, but this would come out after the MP5. And of course, that was the 33, which is the Fire Select fully automatic version. So, let's see. The 33 was also kind of a flop, surprisingly, for HK. Militaries did use it, but they did not adopt it widespread through other militaries, or the militaries that did adopt it as their standard issue rifle were kind of smaller militaries. It did get some success, and like I said, it is still in use with some militaries and police today, but it did not get near the success of the G3 or the MP5. Also, it's worth noting that the apparently the Navy SEALs did field these some in Vietnam. So, there's a little tidbit for you. Now, the original HK33s, those would come with a 15.4 inch barrel. And those were a 6 right-hand groove. Originally, they'd have a 1 in 12 twist. They would later change that to a 1 in 7 twist. However, it's worth noting, obviously, the C93 that we have here does have a 16-inch barrel, obviously, so you don't have to, do the extra paperwork on having an SBR. And it actually has a 1 in 9 twist, from what I could find. So I think they kind of maybe did that for optimal use of both heavy and light 5.56 bullets. Another thing that's worth noting, a lot of times whenever you bring up the C93 or if you try to do research for it, you're going to come across a whole bunch of broom handle C93 pistols, which obviously this is not. A lot of times people will hear you be like, oh, you have a Century C93. Those are complete garbage AKs. And of course, they're thinking of the Century C39. So this is the C93. Well, the source of this gun, I haven't really found for sure. I've basically narrowed it down to either Thailand or Malaysia. A lot of the videos I've watched will mention how these came with Malaysian magazines. I'm really not sure how to identify that. I mean, there's really no marks on here saying such. There's like an old rec number that was kind of scratched out there, unfortunately. Let's see here. The follower, we do have a date of, looks like 6/1/76. Or, of course, you know, we're American, we do everything backwards. That's, for us, it would be 1/6/76. So the mag was made in 1976. By whom? I'm not 100% sure. But I believe the parts kits actually came out of Thailand from what I've seen. I am not positive on that. There's not a whole lot of videos on these. You'll find a video of Ted Nugent shooting this, which it's kind of interesting. That was kind of random and out of nowhere. I was like, oh okay. Lately, there have been a few more videos on these because they kind of got another little spurt production run of these. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. So anyways, I believe these parts kits came out of Thailand. Now, obviously, they changed out the receiver because we have to, because once a machine gun, always a machine gun. For whatever reason, they did switch out these trigger housings. Now, obviously, they modify these to what they call a clipped and pinned. It's a shelved unit rather than having a push pin like back here, up here, just so it's not easy to, you know, buy the fully automatic fire control group and throw it up in there. But you can modify the military surplus ones to work on these commercial ones. And I'm kind of bummed out that they didn't take the original trigger housings and just modify those to put in here to use like that. In this one, whoops, I'm dropping stuff. I'll just leave that down there. This is actually a Thailand lower, and as you can see, it's got a little shelf in there that I put in. It's got a hole for the pin, but that doesn't hold it in. You've got a block right here where that shelf is that prevents you from putting in a pin. But I'm kind of bummed out they didn't just, you know, do this number to it, because you could have. On this particular gun, this lower part's not like an AR-15 where the lower part's, you know, the gun. They could have modified those, and it would have been perfectly legal to do. I also do believe that the trigger pack in here is original. Obviously, they've modified it in a way that is not select fire, but the reason I say that is if you look at that trigger, you can kind of see the paints coming off. And that's how it came. So, there is that. So like I said, I'm pretty sure these came out of Thailand. Now, I was looking at Thailand and the HK93, and it looks like they purchased 40,000 directly from HK in Germany, and then they got a license to produce an additional 30,000 in country. Now, whether these parts kits are from the German-made HKs or the Thailand-made HKs, I have no clue. I don't really know if there's an easy way to tell that. I will point out real quick, this is kind of your forward assist, those little grooves there. If it doesn't go all the way in a battery, kind of use that to push it forward. The last of the C93s that I've seen Century offer, that was, I don't know, 2 to 4 years ago. Those did not have those finger grooves, which I found was kind of interesting. And of course, a lot of people were knocking Century. They're like, they skimped on this. It's a part that has nothing to do with Century. they're using surplus parts, and that's how they got them. So I'm going to guess the ones with serration, I feel like those definitely would be the Thailand-made versions. You know, maybe they're trying to cut corners, just skip one simple step. I don't know how often you'd ever actually use that. So I'm just guessing that the ones without the little thumb groove there to work as a forward assist are, I'm going to guess those definitely are Thailand-made. These ones, you know, maybe they're the original German ones, because there were 40,000 of the German-made ones in Thailand compared to the 30,000 that were made in country. Maybe Thailand did start making them with these grooves to begin with, and then later just were like, we don't need that, we never use it, and skip that part into production. I haven't come across anything for sure telling me one way or the other on that. So this particular HK93 I purchased back in January of 2017. And I was looking in my old records, and I've got a little app that kind of keeps track of my guns and the serial numbers. And I try to keep the prices in there. I had originally said, I believe it was in the video I made for the C93, the Century Arms build. And I believe I said, I brought this up, and I believe I said I purchased it for $550. Looking at my records, it actually says $680. Now, I do believe that included the shipping and the FFL charge. When I first started keeping those records, I'd throw that in there too. But then the FFL transfer fee started changing, and so nowadays I just put the actual price to include the shipping or the FFL charge. But I'm pretty sure with these older ones I did. So it's probably a little less than $680, but we'll just go ahead and say $680 because that's what it was out the door essentially for me. Now, Century did make a few C93 pistols as well, and basically they just put a little cap back here instead of this stock that we've got. And I'm not sure exactly how long those barrels were. They had a shorter handguard, I believe, so it wasn't just muzzled right here. And I don't see those very often. I don't think there are too many of them, but they are out there. And of course you can buy, or at least as of now, they do make arm braces that go on the back of these 93s. So, let's see here. Oh, and then you will also come across a bunch of Century C93 sporters that are actually specifically built by PTR. I think I've seen some videos where people were saying that was a Buds exclusive. I'm not sure how many that they had put out. PTR is a pretty well-known company for making copies of the HK91 or the civilian version of the G3. I believe they purchased old G3 tooling from Portugal that was making licensed HKs. So they're using like the actual same machinery as licensed HKs were. Don't know if they had the same machinery obviously for the 93, but from what I can understand, once again too, it's not very clear. It looks like, from what I've heard also, Century wasn't really making a whole lot of money on these C93s. They had lots of issues. If you watch any reviews, you will find lots of videos of people having issues with this. And so it kind of looks like Century just kind of gave up on it, and they sold a couple of the kits to PTR, and PTR put them together. And those seem to be a little bit, you got a little bit better luck of the draw with the PTR ones, but I've also seen some stories of people having issues with those as well. Now, the interesting thing is, after those came out, another small batch of these came from Century, as the C93 Sporter. And like I said, those were the ones, from what I've seen, all of them did not have this finger groove there. So another way to tell the difference between the PTR built C93 and the Century built C93 is the PTR ones do not have this little ring here for your rifle fired grenades. It's kind of got a lug there. They did not bother putting that on, which kind of surprised me because PTR is a little better quality than your Century built stuff, and it surprised me that Century bothered to do that. And you do have the HK style Flash hider there. Classic, you know, same kind of style front sight you see on the G3 and the MP5. You got your sling attachment on the side here. And of course, if you watch my videos on the Setmig, you know what's coming up next. You got a little push pin here. I recommend putting it in this way. So you're inserting it this way. The slings have kind of a buckle. So if it's pushing up against this, let's say the sling's over here, it's pushing up against this, it could push that pin, pop it out, and you might lose that. So that's the only reason I recommend putting it in this direction. Just so if your sling buckle pushes it, you're just, you know, pushing it in. It's not going to go anywhere on you. This particular one has the classic wide handguard. Now the early HK33s did have the kind of slim polymer handguards you see on a lot of the early model G3s. But this wide one, I like it. It feels better. It does come a little further back. Those round slim ones, the front trunnion here is kind of exposed. So, you know, if you grab too far back, you do run the risk of burning your hand. These are also cool because you have a little slot here for a bipod that folds up, and that's what these cutouts are for. And that's just very cool. And I mean, I'm going to say the reason I got this, you know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I was a kid, watched action movies. Now, this one did not get nearly as much screen time as the MP5. I think that's probably one of the most screen-timed guns of all time. And then you see a lot of the G3s or the 91s. You will see these guys pop up some, but it's typically the larger caliber or the pistol caliber. But it's just still, I mean, just screams 80s action movie, right? Or 90s action movie. So that was really what drew me to it. I was actually getting ready to purchase the Century C308. And this guy just caught my eye. Ordered it. There wasn't really any information at all other than Ted Nugent's video. So ordered it. I've got to include this story because it's just kind of weird. Like 2 days after I placed my order for this, it still hadn't been shipped out from Classic Firearms, and they listed them as sold out. And I was like, oh man, I'm glad I grabbed one of those. I don't know when these will be coming back in stock, and I don't think I've ever seen them back in stock. I don't think Classic even got some of the last batch of them that didn't have the forward assist. Maybe they did. I just may have missed it. But anyway, so I was happy there. Finally got shipped out. Showed up at my FFL. I didn't get off work in time, or I was working all day, or whatever reason I didn't mess with going to pick it up. That night, someone drove a truck up to my FFL, hooked up chains to their front door, and hooked those chains to their freaking truck, and pulled the front door off of the gun shop. And literally, like, completely cleaned out all the guns they had in the cabinets out front. So, like, the next morning I see that on the news. I'm like, you've got to be fracking kidding me. You know, luckily, at least it was at night, you know, so no employees were there. No one was at risk of getting injured. You know, so I called them up, and I'm like, hey, glad you guys, you know, no one was hurt, but had a gun transferred. Luckily, since it was a transfer, it was in the back, and then apparently they didn't mess with that. So this gun sat in a gun shop overnight while it got robbed. Interesting little side story. Just had to mention that. So, going back to the front and back. This does have the all-metal charging handle. I've seen some. Looks like they have a plastic piece up here. Or at least it's plastic coated. This one is all-metal and fairly stiff. And, of course, this is the classic. I mean, when you go out to the range and you chamber this, you look around, people are just staring at you, and they're like, oh, he just did the HK slap. So, I mean, a lot of people are like, that's good enough reason right there to get the gun alone. Some people say you actually should not do that, because you can wear this little nub out there. They say, you know, you should just kind of, you know, drop it down and then let go. Which, I mean, that does work. From what I've seen, HK does actually, you know, train with that HK slap. Now, I'm sure if this was in a military setting where it's constantly getting used, especially like training or something, I could definitely see that being an issue with this little piece getting worn off. And the gun would still function, you just want to be able to lock the bolt back, which makes it a lot easier to load fully loaded magazines when that bolts all the way back. However, if this is just a gun in your collection, you know, you're not, you know, constantly shooting it, I feel perfectly fine doing that HK slap every time. I do not think I will have the opportunity to shoot this to the point and as often where that's going to become an issue. So I do the HK slap. This particular one also does come with a carry handle, which is kind of cool. And I will say, when you carry it right here, it is like perfectly balanced. So it's not, you know, front heavy or back heavy. It is like stinking perfect. Now, the downside of having this on there, if you do not like it, it is easily removable. However, when you put these on, they tend to mar up the finish underneath. So if you've got one of these, just know if you remove this, the finish is probably going to be a little scratched up. Or if you don't have one of these and you want to install it, no, it's going to mar up your finish a little bit putting it on there. I personally really like it. I think it's pretty cool. I did have a sling on here for a little while, but it was like, don't really need it. So I took it off. The original HK33s would have a push button magazine release, as well as a paddle magazine release, just like on the G3. I do not know why they did that, but they did. And then, of course, you know, with putting in that shelf, typically they just don't bother putting in the paddle mag release. I've seen some people say that the ATF would not allow them to have that paddle mag release on there, and that's not really the case. The case is you had to have the shelf, so, you know, you couldn't just put in one of the semi-auto lowers that, you know, and put the pin in there and rock away with that. And when they put in these shelves, they just don't bother with the extra milling work of putting in that paddle release because it has the push button. Now, a lot of civilian semi-auto builds of these, they do put in that paddle mag release. You can also buy kits where you can install one yourself. To me, I'm not going to be doing any kind of like 3-gun competition shooting with this where I'm having to worry about, you know, fast mag changes. That's not an issue for me. So the time and money to put into putting a paddle release back in here, to me, it's just not worth it. I'm fine with this trigger release. However, I will say, like on the G3, I said trigger release, mag release, that magazine release button is in the perfect spot, only if you have ET length fingers. So you do got to reach a little bit on that. But like I said, I'm not going to be doing, you know, speed mag changes or anything. So I am not terribly concerned about that. Then, of course, you have the diopter rear sight. I personally love this drum sight here. The 1,000 meter mark, it's kind of a quote-unquote battle sight, I guess you could say. And then the rest are your peep sights there. Some people will talk about how they absolutely hate these. I like it. I see no issue with it. Works just fine for me. And then, of course, the Century build has this US-made trigger housing like I talked about earlier. Some of them I've seen will have the indicator here, color filled in. Some of them will not. Then you got your safety lever over here. This one, unfortunately, and really, I guess not too uncommon. Hold on, let me take this mag out here. It's driving me nuts. 40 round mag kind of gets in the way. The color fill. I think in one video I mentioned this and I said it looked like a drunk 5-year-old did it. Not that I condone in 5-year-olds getting drunk or drinking at all, but it looks pretty bad. Doesn't look too bad on the screen here actually, but it is. But I've seen like some of the actual HKs, and sometimes they look, that side's pretty decent actually. Sometimes those are pretty god-awful horrible too. So I guess it's just kind of being authentic there. Part of the reason too, let's see, this side feels like the markings are actually indented. So that might be a little bit easier to color fill, whereas on this side, the S and F are actually raised. So they're having to trace it. You're not just doing, you know, the color fill, wiping it, you know, gooping it on wiping off the excess. You're actually having to kind of hand paint that on there. And then we got the buttstock here. This is the all polymer one. I've heard some people say that these are actually MP5 buttstocks. I will say I found a lot of pictures of the Thailand military that are using these, and they are the all polymer design. Some of them will have kind of a metal cap here. And then, of course, when I first bought this, and the most, once again, going back to the movie iconic gun, is these would have a collapsible buttstock with arms that would go down on either side. Much like my Setme LC, which is put up, so I'm not going to pull that out for you. Kind of the same style on that. Now, one thing I noticed about this handguard that I think is interesting is you can see it looks kind of has like warts on her, some kind of like, you know, real light raised areas there. Once again, on the pictures of the Malaysian or the Thailand C93s, I zoomed in, they weren't the best quality picture, but it looks like it does have that. I'm assuming that's just put on there for extra grip. Maybe that's something that they did on the HKs that would be used in, you know, kind of high humidity areas. That, you know, that kind of makes sense to me. And then, of course, your buttstock here, you do have the two little spots to hold onto your pins. When you're disassembling it, you have your rear sling attachment, and then you have a butt pad, which on this one, it actually kind of feels plastic. I don't think it's even rubber. It's just a plastic butt pad, which I guess is a little better than an all-metal one. And then, of course, if you purchase one of these C93s, from what I've heard, originally they did come with two 40-round aluminum mags, but then later on only came with one. Mine came with just the one. The mags on these can be expensive, and they kind of go up and down with prices. The last time I looked, it might have been a year ago, but I want to say these aluminum 40 rounds in decent shape were going for like 80 bucks. Now, I will say not too long ago, AIM Surplus was offering HK 40 round aluminum mags, and they're grade X or grade C condition for 40 bucks. And they looked pretty rough. I did order one of those. It's not out here either. And when I got it, it looked pretty disgusting, but it just grime. I ended up cleaning it all off, and it actually looks better than this magazine. So I was happy with that. And of course, you know, AIM Surplus sold out of those pretty quickly. So if you're getting online right now to check, yeah, don't worry. They might get some more though. You never know. But these mags can be expensive. I've seen a lot of people say that the steel 30 round German made HK mags will not work in these. Like, they can't get them to seat in there. However, I've seen plenty of videos of the specifically C93 running those steel German-made 30-round magazines. So there is a chance. And of course, they also did have a 25-round mag. And the 30 and the 25-round, I do believe they offered them in both steel and aluminum. So you do have some options there. And those mags are not cheap. Now, the weird part about this is I found some aftermarket mags for this. You would think that a good quality magazine company would make replacement mags for these, but no, they don't, or at least they don't anymore. I've got a dirty secret for you guys. I keep some dirty magazines underneath my mattress that I don't want anyone to know about because I'm embarrassed, frankly. A little disgusted with myself for having these dirty magazines under my bed. But they're so cheap. You can get Pro Mag. This is a 20-round mag. This is a 30-round mag, and they do also offer a 40-round mag as well. Now then, we'll get into my shooting experience with this. Now, I will point out the 20-round mag, it looks goofy. I feel like it makes it almost look like an airsoft gun, and the scale's a little off. Also, I'm not even sure if that locked in. There it goes. Some people will need to modify these to work on the C93. From what I've seen, you're just cutting a little bit of material out right here. There's a ton of videos on this actually, on how to do that if you're curious. Mine do pop in there. However, sometimes you really got to shove them in there. Also keep in mind, if you lock the bolt back while you're loading a magazine, you're going to have a lot easier time and much more likely to actually locking the mag in. With these, there were a few times before I realized you got to really slam them up in there. I would take them out to the range and fire one round and the freaking mag would fall out. Or it'd kind of come down just a little bit and I look stupid. So, you do have the Pro Mag option. Honestly, I would probably just spend a little more money and get some HK surplus magazines, whether it be steel or aluminum or 30 or 40 rounds. So my shooting experience with this. Ooh, I didn't do my trigger pull. I'm going to do that for you because I'm always tired of forgetting that. I'll grab that here in a little bit. Anyhow, my shooting experience with this, when I first took it out, I think this might have been the first semi-auto gun I purchased, or did I have my Yugo SKS? Anyways, definitely had this before my AR-15. Took it out and it shot great. I think I had one double feed, and that was it. I cannot remember how many rounds I shot. That was way too long ago for me to remember. But I was really happy with it. Now, I will say, I think almost the entire time I've shot this gun, I was shooting 223 rather than 5.56. 5.56 seems to have a little more oomph, and I've heard specifically people referring to roller delays that they prefer the 5.56. I didn't know that, so I was feeding a steady diet of 223, and at first, like I said, it shot great. Very soft recoiling gun. From what I remember, I want to say it was just a hair off to the left or to the right. You will see some people complaining, this being a Century build, that these rear sights are built so much. There's, you can see pictures and videos of people having this all the way to the left or all the way to the right, and it's still like not on target. This one I won't have that issue. As you can see there, I've got a little bit of room to move. A little bit of room to move it to the left there, a little bit more room to move it to the right. I just never got around to messing with that. But then I took it out a few more times, and that's when I started running some issues with this. I was getting double feeds, I was getting stovepipes. And that was with a mixture of using the original 40 round HK mag that came with it, and those two dirty Pro Mags. I did start to discover that the Pro Mags seemed to be having a few more malfunctions than just using the original mag. I still had malfunctions with this mag. It's not solely the Pro Mag's fault, but I do believe some of the malfunctions with the Pro Mag were because it was a Pro Mag. So then I just started using this mag. I was still having some issues, but not nearly as many, but enough to make it freaking frustrating because I wanted this to be a good, reliable gun. And I remember I was kind of looking around, and from what I've seen, a lot of people were saying these have roughly a 500 round break-in period. Some people were saying the parkerization was put on too thick on the inside, and you're basically kind of needing to wear that away. I don't know if that's true. I will say that began my quest to just get through 500 rounds. And right around 500 rounds, it started to operate very well to me. Like, I'd take it out. I'd take, maybe 150 rounds with me, shoot those and not have any issues, and then I'd get another gun to bring this out with me with another 150 rounds, and maybe I'd get a stovepipe, like one stovepipe or one failure to feed. Actually, I think the stovepipes went away. I'd still occasionally get like one failure to feed. And then I feel like the last 3 times I took this out, I actually had 0 issues with it whatsoever. So I feel like I kind of got through that break-in period. I understand that's not a lot of rounds, consecutively without an issue for me to say for sure that this is broken. But you guys have seen my videos. As soon as I see a shiny object, I get distracted and I got to get something else and read up on the history of that and then shoot it enough to give you my shooting impressions. So this guy kind of got neglected, especially with the failures I was having. I don't feel comfortable saying, oh yes, this thing is perfect. I will say the last couple times I took it out, though, it has been perfect. Saying that, it's probably been 3 or 2 years at least since I've taken this out. It's definitely been 2 years since I've taken this out. Lately, all my 5.56 has been going into my, I got that Wolf A1 upper, and then the 70L, and then the LC. So this guy got a little neglected, but I did want to get a video out for you. I think she's doing good. I kind of feel like that 500 round break-in period might have been an actual legit thing, but just so you know, I'm not 100% saying that everything is perfect. So let me get my trigger pull gauge. I read down on my notes to make sure I had everything, guys, and the trigger pull wasn't on there. I failed y'all. Sorry. So, here's the old Lyman trigger pull gauge. Turn her on. Thank God batteries are still working, because that would have sucked. Hit clear a couple times just to make sure. Actually, rotate that around the other way. Okay, so let me get that mag back out. Trigger pull number 1. Okay, let me take 2. I'm trying to do this on camera. You know what? I was going to do it, and I'll show you each one if you guys want. Also, here's your safety selector. It does help to put it on fire. I'm glad I did that, because I kind of forgot about this. This feels a little wonky. Going down to see how it kind of like pops back out. Now, I did show you guys that other upper, or excuse me, that other trigger housing or lower, whatever you want to call it. I have already test fit that on here. It does not have that issue with that one. But, figured I'd show you. Okay, cleared out. That did not register. All right. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, I got to hit ready, then, okay. Yeah. 3 pounds, 3 ounces. I always do 5 trigger pulls. And then I'll go off the average. That was 3 pounds, 5.7 ounces. Ready. Trigger pull number 3. Getting a little heavier. 4 pounds, 12 ounces. What is it? Trigger pull number 4. Drop down a pound. 3 pounds, 14.9 ounces. And trigger pull number 5. That came in at 4 pounds, 8.2 ounces. Let me set this down. So that gives us an average of 3 pounds, 15.2 ounces. So just under 4 pounds. That's not bad for a military trigger. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I guess I should show you the reset. So, what am I doing? Okay, holding the trigger down. Cocked it. Okay, now I can show you the now I can show you the reset. So, I mean, it's a little bit out there. It's not too far, though. So, there's that. This gun is very, very, very fun to shoot. Of course, you get a lot of looks when you're doing that whole HK slap because you look like a badass. One thing to be warned if you're getting one of these, it's a Century build. You're taking a gamble when you buy a Century build. I know I've got the C308 so far. I've had good luck with that. I'm actually getting ready to take that out tomorrow to shoot it some more, so I'll get you a full shooting impressions video on that. So far I've had 0 issues. I've only had like 100 rounds through it at this point, but this guy, like I said, it was a little rough breaking in. I think she's doing good now. I paid, what did I say, $680? Yeah, $680 back in 2017. I have seen these being sold for, like on Gunbroker, used, the Century C93 sporter, not even the PTR ones. And I've seen them go for anywhere from like $800 to $1,200, and that was before the coof and the whole gun grabbing scare and all that crap. So, if you're going to be spending like over $1,000 on one of these, I honestly would try my hardest to try to find the PTR version, not necessarily just the C93 PTR build. PTR does make their own, 93 variation. They don't put them out, it seems like, nearly as much as the 91, so I'm not sure how easy it is to find them. And I feel like, you might be spending, I haven't priced them, but I would imagine around $1,500 or less, And if you're going to spend like $1,000 or a little more on the Century one, just spend a little more cash and get something that's going to be a little better built, a little better reputation, a little more reliable. Like I said, this one's kind of broken in now, seems to be good. Another thing to be warned about, like I was talking about the mags, they can be pricey. So can every freaking thing else on this gun be. So obviously, I don't think I completely said it earlier, but when I first bought this, I'm like, no brainer. I'm getting the collapsible stock. Like, you always see them on the MP5. And then, like, G3s will have them as well as the 33 or 93s. And they just look freaking cool. Those collapsible stocks, when I first got this gun, I was looking around and I think I found some for like $250. And I was like, God dang, that's almost half as much as what I spent on the gun, so I didn't. And I hate myself for not getting one, because I looked around since then, more recently, like a few months ago. This isn't the best time to be looking at this stuff, because, prices are still kind of crazy and out of control, and things are just hard to find in general. But the collapsible stocks, I think I found a beat up one for like $350, and then I found some other ones for like $450 and $550. So I was like, freaking hell. And this stock, it's plenty comfortable, there's really no issues with it. I don't know if I want to spend that much money on a collapsible stock just simply because it looks cool. And yes, that's the only freaking reason I want to get it. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Some of those collapsible stocks have a metal butt pad on them, and it literally looks like a meat tenderizer. And a lot of people talk about how, uncomfortable those things are. They do have other ones that have a rubber butt pad. Also, I do believe that the collapsing stocks for the MP5s will fit on here. I am not 100% sure, but I am pretty darn rootin' tootin' sure that they will. And the butt pad design is just slightly different on those. I do believe all of those are rubber. Maybe it's metal and rubber. But even those go for like $350 to $450. So I've got my Set Me LC that has that same style of collapsible butt stock. So I'm kind of like, well, maybe that will just, fill my fix on that. I have thought about getting one of these fixed butt stocks that have the metal cap right here. It just looks a little nicer. But once again, I think those are like $150 to $250. They're not really cheap. It's like, do I really want to spend that just so that this part's metal and it looks ever so slightly nicer? And then they also do have side folding stocks. So right now I'm kind of debating if I want to get one of those. I don't even know what the prices are on those. Side folding, I still get that compactness, and I know it's not nearly as expensive as the collapsing ones. And same thing with these trigger housings. There are basically 3 different kinds of trigger housings you can get for these. The metal ones, and then there's essentially 2 different polymer ones. Got to pay attention when you're getting the polymer ones, because the 2 different polymer ones you're going to need to use a specific trigger pack, because your little safety hole here is a different size. I'll get into that in another video when I go over my... Where did I put it? I just had it out. my trigger housing, oh, there it is. When I go over this guy, yeah, I'm going to milk this video. This will be a separate one. Also, I just kind of wanted to show you how the C93 came out of the box. So there's trigger housings. I got lucky with that one. I'll go ahead and tell you. I think I got it for like 60 or 80 bucks. I'll do a video on it and I'll find the price for sure on that, which is not bad. Price can go up very quickly, especially if you get the, if you're having to switch out the trigger pack itself. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, these do not have a pick rail on top. They do have a claw mount attachment that goes on here. HK made those. You can also get aftermarket ones that's basically a claw mount pick rail that goes on here. I've heard good and bad things about those. Just be warned, if you're using those, I do believe it's going to end up marring up your finish some here if that's going to drive you real nuts. I had planned on doing that and putting a scope on there. I don't think I'm going to mess with putting a scope on here. I feel like I have other rifles that are more accurate than this. Still kind of think about maybe getting one of those and putting a red dot on it. I feel like that could be fun. But I also have my C93 that has a pick rail on it that I do have a red dot on. So this one just kind of might stay for now. Okay. Oh, last but not least. Oh, no. Second to last but not least. Didn't have this out and ready. The Bayonet. Now, I ended up getting kind of a unusual, different looking bayonet than what's typically available for these. I picked up this bayonet from Liberty Tree Collectors shortly after I got this, so it was sometime in 2017. And it is actually a Pakistani bayonet. It did not come with a sheath. The typical German bayonets were kind of more of a spear rather than, this kind of more traditional looking. I'm not a knife guy. I don't know what that's called, where it goes up. But I like the look of this more than the German ones. And I can't really remember how much I paid for this, but I remember it was a fair amount cheaper than the German one. So I was like, what the hell, why not? The one downside of this, as you can see, it's like someone used this as like a pry bar or something, so the tip is bent a little bit. Oh well, I don't plan on using it. We do have that POF 70 mark there. I think that's a 643. I don't know if these had matching bayonets to the guns. I'm assuming Pakistan made a licensed copy of the HK as well. I do know that Pakistan's like #1 import are like knife blades. So maybe they made these bayonets for, contract for another country. This semi did come with the bayonet lug. And it mounts similar to the C93, but instead of a little tab sticking out, I guess I should show you first. It's got kind of almost a little trap door there. This is so hard to do in front of the camera. There we go. Tell me that ain't cool looking, right? I mean, that just looks freaking gnarly. So, there's the bayonet for you. It's got a little release button here. There we go. Put this over here. And then, the very last thing did come with a owner's manual. C93 semi-auto rifle. Now this has some interesting, not to steal anything from Doug Monroe, the car review guy. This owner's manual has some interesting quirks and features. It's actually, and I will say it is a decent owner's manual. It goes through the whole bolt disassembly with the head there. Now, when you're disassembling this might catch you off guard, because I'm pretty sure that's an MP5 bolt. So it will look a little bit different, but the basic theory is the same. And then over here we show the kind of, what do they call it? The pictograph plastic lower, which I believe is the other plastic lower than what's actually on here. You know how I said there's two different ones, but it still does go into quite a bit of detail. Looked all over for a video on disassembling these HK mags because I got that surplus one from AIM and I wanted to clean up really good. I couldn't find a single video showing you how to do this. I knew there was two springs, so I was kind of intimidated, and I finally just went ahead and did it on my own. It's really easy. I might even do a video on that. And then getting ready for this video, I found the owner's manual, opened it up, and I was like, oh, huh. Shows it all in there, and that's not too bad. Then down here we have a metal trigger housing, because you can see the grip is like a separate piece that slides on there. So we're just switching parts all around in this. But like I said, I mean, you get the gist of it. It is a good detailed one. I think that's actually got the proper plastic lower on there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I feel like, I mean, it's been a while since I've disassembled this because I haven't had it out for a bit. I might be wrong, but isn't that the MP5 bolt? Maybe that was the proper bolt. Maybe I'm crazy, guys. I don't know. Watch me take it out, disassemble it, clean it, and be like, oh no, that was the right bolt the whole time. But it does switch around the trigger housings on you. You know, there's the metal one. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But overall, it is actually a pretty good. There shows you a little special sight tool. It's a pretty good manual. It's pretty in-depth. So not bad. Because I do know these roller delays are here. A lot of people will be like, oh, I don't want to get one. I've heard disassembling them and cleaning them is a real pain in the ass. And it can be a little intimidating at first. They're really not that hard. And honestly, the only reason they're a pain in the ass is because they're dirty as hell. Everything in there gets dirty. So it's not necessarily hard to take it apart, especially once you've done it a few times. But you're going to go through a lot of patches. Definitely recommend like wearing some gloves or something because you are going to get gross and grimy. So that is it on the Century C93 Sporter. Don't really think these are going to be popping up too much. I don't think Century's going to be putting out any more. I could be wrong. They seem to put these out in very limited batches. So, I mean, it's a decent gun if you get it at a decent price. I don't want you guys paying crazy, especially right now because I've seen guns go for ridiculous freaking amounts. I'm very attached to my guns, but the market, the price, the way it's been, I've sold a few. That's, you know, how I got my Set Me L and LC, and I wouldn't have been able to get those guns if I had sold what I sold at a different time. So it's great if you're selling a gun right now, but if you're buying one, not so much. So if you're going to end up spending like, you know, $1,200 on a Century 93 and you're wanting a 93 just to have something different, maybe you want a roller delay because you heard of how soft recoiling it is, and that sounds great to you. Just buy a brand new Marklemar Set Me L. You know, that gun's it's basically the Spanish version of this. It's still roller delay. It is built way better than what Century would build something. And it's kind of the same gun, if not maybe a little better. You don't get the HK slap. It's got a bolt, you know, hold open for that. But yeah, don't overpay for one of these. If you can get one, it's not a bad gun. Just, you know, if you spend $1,200 getting one of these used, okay, so you got a good one and it functions fine. But you want to change out bits and pieces. That $1,200, you're going to add to that price so freaking quick. So before you buy one of these, you want to think about where you're wanting to go with it, what you're wanting to do to it, if anything, and then really figure that into the cost, because these HK parts can be pretty darn pricey. So just kind of keep that in mind. I can see a lot of people getting these, wanting to modify them, and then getting kind of buyer's remorse. as is, it's a pretty badass gun as long as you've got one that works. You know, I'm not saying you necessarily need to change out stuff. It's a pretty slick and pretty cool and iconic gun, and it's fun to shoot. So, okay, I'm going to end it now. That is my review of the C93 Century Arms, C93 Sporter Century Arms. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with all my rambling. Have a good one, and stay shiny.